Hey, what is going on, podcast peeps, man? It is so great to have you back here for episode number 3 of Beyond the Broadcast. Hey, if this is your third time coming around for this third episode, or if you're a first-time listener, I would really appreciate it if you took the time here today and just simply clicked follow on your preferred podcast platform wherever you are listening to this. Every single follow, every rating really does help me grow the show and get more spectacular guests. So if you could do that one just teensy little favor for me here today, that would mean the absolute world. You know, I'm trying to get bigger and better guests. I'm trying to get some really big names. We got some big names on the horizon already, but man, your support will mean the absolute world to me and to this podcast. And also make sure you follow us down below. We've got some really awesome things in the pipeline. I'm working on some clips and some of the best moments from these episodes, and I can't wait for you to see what we have in store, especially for today's episode. Man, today we have such a great guest, and it is Mr. T-Money, Tanner Hoops. Man, he's one of my really good media friends from our time at college. I met him for the first time, and he is just such a kind soul. He really is. He has a smile on his face. It doesn't really ever seem like anything can bring him down out of a mood. You know, he's just so kind and so generous. He's a guy who, when you hear him, and you're going to hear him here in a moment, you'll get why he's in broadcasting, because honestly, he was meant to do this. This was what he was born to do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he is just such a great guy as well. And, you know, his journey has been kind of everywhere. I mean, he was up in Duluth with the Deluth Huskies. He was at ESPN UP in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then he is now where he is now. He is with the Sioux Falls Canaries during the summer as their main broadcaster, play-by-play, and head guy. And he is also, his full-time job is with the University of Minnesota and Learfield, which is so cool and so awesome. And just the things he has to say about, you know, tips and tricks of how to get better and how to be a professional in the media world and the connections that you should build and putting your name out there. I mean, he just touches on all these things. I didn't even have to prompt him. You'll see, I think I asked a total of like 6 or 7 questions, and he just took it and ran with it. So a professional's professional, such a great guy, and I cannot wait for you to meet Mr. T-Money Hoops. Oh man, I am so excited. Yes, his last name is Hoops, Hoops. You can fact check me. That's not a radio name. That's not an on-air name. That is his name. It is Tanner Hoops. It is his legal government name. Again, it's just fitting. So without any further ado, let's get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my dear media friend. Please welcome Mr. Tanner T-Money Hoops. T-Money T-Hoops? Man, how are you? What's going on in life, man?
Tyler, I'm great. Thanks for doing this. Great to reconnect. And I tell you, life has been really good. You know, I've really enjoyed where things have taken me, really blessed with my career path. And, you know, I'm staying busy, which is what I like. You know, I hate nights off. I'm one of those people that, you know, I'm in the industry, the line of work where I'm blessed I'm able to say that. So you caught me on a rare one, which, you know, is great. I love being able to take the time and catch up with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we come up with.
I was going to say, you know, I know in the industry, you know, in the industry, there are no off nights. You're putting in the hours, and you haven't really seemed to slow down since college, man. Your wheels just keep on turning, and I love it.
I appreciate you saying that. The check's in the mail, by the way, but, you know, I'm really grateful for the people that, you know, have invested in me. You know, you don't get to succeed in this industry. And, you know, I think that's true with any industry, this one especially, without people who believe in you and invest in you. And I'm really thankful for the people that I've come across to, you know, allow that to happen for me. So, you know, it's taken me a few different stops and picked up, you know, a lot of different memories, a lot of new friends, and some new faces in my repertoire along the way.
Well, talk to me just about this journey you've been on, man, because I think I last saw you when you were at Buena Vista, and you've kind of been all over the place covering so many different teams. And just talk to me about that journey since graduating high school. Where have you all been?
Yeah, so you and I, of course, ran across each other at old BVU in Storm Lake, and it was a great experience. Loved my time there. They did a wonderful job with ever the support they had behind, but our common staff with KBVU. And beyond that, the entire media department there just been fantastic. I've enjoyed keeping contact with a lot of people from there. From graduation, I went up to Duluth, Minnesota, and I was part of the Northwoods League. I was doing play-by-play for the Deluth Huskies up there. Had a great experience, great summer. Duluth is a wonderful city, albeit so hilly. I'm thankful I was there during the summer. I could not imagine trying to drive on those icy roads around this time of year. That being said, summers don't really start turning into summer there until after the 4th of July. It's really gray up till then. I love Duluth. I don't mean to sound like it's a negative place at all. I love it. Great memories there. And I had great memories during that summer of 2018. We had a new coaching staff come in, new manager, and Tiger Peterson, he's really carving out a niche for himself, doing really well in the industry as far as coaching and managing in professional baseball. He was our skipper that season. We went to the league championship. We had an opportunity there to win that winner take all game 3 to give us the league title. Couldn't do it, but it was a special season. We reached some new heights that the franchise hadn't in a long time, and made some great memories along the way. So I love my time up there. From there, I went to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Marquette. I got a job with ESPN Radio's affiliate up there, ESPN UP. So primarily covering a lot of the local sports there. They've got Division I college hockey. They've got 3 schools up there that, it's a really good hockey area. In fact, Kraft Hockeyville, the NHL event, came up to Calumet, about 2 hours up the road in the Keweenaw Peninsula. Had the opportunity to cover that, interview NHLers, which was just an outstanding experience. My favorite memory from that, I'll tell you, was when Pierre McGuire, who was, such a staple with hockey broadcast, and, he still is an icon in the industry. My boss at the time knew him, introduced me to him, and he says, "Oh yeah, I saw you on TV last night." I'm like, Pierre McGuire recognized me. Like, this is, he got in the night before. He was watching the local sports and recognized me from TV the night before. I thought, is this going to be the peak? I thought that was really cool. But getting to cover the Blues, who were just coming off a Stanley Cup championship. The Red Wings, of course, being the local team, all the ties that were there. That was just one of the greatest memories for me, being part of some special moments in the hockey industry with that, with Northern Michigan University, and then Michigan Tech and Lake Superior State. The people I got to interview, and have on my talk show were fantastic. And I still keep in touch with a lot of the people that I got to know in the UP, because that's always going to be a special place to me. That was such a special time for me up there, and a lot of development, both as a person and as a professional. But, of course, the world stopped in 2020. COVID hit, and, ESPN had a lot of, positions, a lot of talented people whose, positions at ESPN didn't survive. And that happened to me. So I was kind of figuring out, okay, what do we do now? Where are we going to go with this career? There were some discouraging moments from that. The next job I took got me out of broadcast and got me into kind of front office work. And, and I just knew that wasn't the path I wanted to take. That's not what I wanted to do, with the rest of my life. So after a year as a front office executive in junior hockey, I got a call from the University of Minnesota and Learfield Sports Properties. And that was kind of set up because when I was a senior at BV, I was cold calling everybody, going up and down and looking for, any email that I could find that might lead to a job. Most of them didn't get back to me. A few said, "We appreciate you reaching out. We don't have anything available right now. We'll keep you on file." The U of M was the exception because they said, "We don't have anything open right now, but we have a men's basketball game tomorrow night against the University of Iowa. If you want to come up and job shadow, we'll set you up with our team." I thought, I'd love to. So met the broadcast team up there, a lot of the broadcast operations people, just kind of followed around Mike Grimm, longtime voice of the Gophers, who's become, one of my closest friends and mentors since then. And who would have known that, this would come full circle, and it ended up leading me back there. But it was because of that that they remembered me. And when this position opened up to do what I'm doing now, which is radio voice of Golden Gopher volleyball, studio host for football, and then fill in with basketball, hockey, and things as needed, It was all set up by that, and thankfully they remembered me. I must have made some kind of good impression on them, and I'm really thankful that I did and that they remembered me. And coming up to the Twin Cities has just been fantastic. I feel like I've found a place where I can stay the rest of my life. I can, love what I'm doing here. For that doesn't mean for the right opportunity would I go elsewhere? Sure, but I'm not actively looking to do so. I love where I'm at right now. Beyond my career, I think sometimes the Twin Cities can get a bad rep. I love where I live. I think it's a great community. I really enjoy being there. The city and the state and everything that comes along with it. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of potential up here. You just feel like you've got opportunities to continue to advance your career and get to know the right people. So I'm really thankful for how that's worked out and, where I'm at personally and professionally with that. And then, kind of the cherry on top, being up at the U of M opened up some new doors where I can spend my summers in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I'm about to enter my third year as the play-by-play voice of the Sioux Falls Canaries of the American Association. It's kind of set up in a roundabout way where, I asked my boss at the U of M, I said, look, this position's opening up during the summer. There might be a couple of conflicts we can work around toward the fall, but would you be okay if I did this? He said, matter of fact, I know the new owners down there. I'll put in a call for you. I thought, okay, why not? So kind of came full circle. They offered that to me. The owners down there are huge Golden Gopher boosters, Twin Cities based guys, and just fantastic people and individuals. I'm really thankful that everybody's been willing to, work around conflicts if needed and continue to invest in me. And you don't get anywhere, no matter how talented you are, what you might be, you don't get anywhere without good people willing to invest in you. And that means a lot to me. I want to do right by them, do a great job with them, and continue to represent those brands as best I can. So, I'm really thankful being primarily in the cities with Sioux Falls as kind of my adoptive home now. It's a great city. It's, it's certainly a place that you can spend a lot of time. And, that's kind of a roundabout way to say here for the last 6 years or so, already 6 years since I graduated, things have been really good. I've been really blessed and really thankful with how things have panned out.
The little kid in you has got to be so happy for where you're at right now, because you talk about this roadmap that you've been on since graduation, and now you've really found a home with the University of Minnesota and with the Canaries. Your inner child just has to be grinning from cheek to cheek about what you're doing right now.
100%. I think about when I'm just sitting there sometimes, it still dawns on me, no matter how much you do this, I'm getting paid to call games in the Big Ten. I'm sitting here making a living working professional baseball. We got a good number of former big leaguers that are in the American Association now. And I remember being little watching these guys just starting out their career, it maybe rookies or so in Major League Baseball. And now they've still got the itch to play, maybe trying to get back there. And some of them do, with our league. And, I get to narrate their stories. It still just hits me that, this is something that I've dreamed about, I've prayed about, I didn't really expect necessarily, but wow, it kind of comes full circle. My first year with the Gopher Radio Network, I was doing a women's basketball game in Madison. We were at the Kohl Center, and they play hockey there too. They don't get rid of the ice before they put the basketball floor on. They put that rubber mat down, so my feet are freezing by like the third quarter. I can't feel them, and and the equipment wasn't working when I get there, and I'm having trouble getting stuff to work, getting stuff on air, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, can this thing just get over? I don't. And then I stopped, and I'm like, if your worst day is calling a Big Ten basketball game at the Kohl Center, that's a great gig. So, and that from that moment, I knew that internally, but, I always try to remind myself, no matter what is going on, I'm really blessed where I'm at and where, things are and how they panned out. So, it still absolutely hits me, it's still in a state of awe getting to, narrate and even when I just go to support the schools when I'm not on air, just being able to be part of this ecosystem and to be witness to some great events, is just something that I continue to cherish and will never take for granted.
And the one thing that I've always noticed about you, no matter what part of the journey you've been on, you are a well of sports knowledge and sports facts that the well just doesn't seem to dry up. Where did this whole wealth of knowledge come from? Is it just growing up with sports? Because I feel like some people grow up with sports but don't have quite as much knowledge as you do about anything when it comes to sports.
I've always tried to be knowledgeable about what I do. I always make it a point that nobody's ever going to out-prepare me, because so much can go wrong with your technology and so much will go wrong. As being in media, you can never totally bank on technology run smoothly. So control what you can control. And for me, that's being prepared and having good talking points. It's people ask me, do you ever feel nervous when you go on air? Do you ever, still get butterflies, jitters? And, I used to for a long time. I've been doing this enough now that really the only time that I do get nervous is if I don't feel like I'm prepared enough, and I always try to have more. That's the general rule. Always have more than you're ever going to use. Have unnecessary amounts of knowledge and talking points to go on with. But, it's something that I always knew I kind of wanted to get into. I knew this was the industry I wanted to be a part of since I was little. And I knew that was something that would be beneficial toward me in my career, would help set me apart and further me along. So it was something that I've always had a knack for and enjoyed, but also knew that it's something that the more well off you are in that aspect, the better off you're going to be in all aspects of the industry.
If people go back to watch episode 1, I talked about this story, but I want to tell you this story. And I love that you bring up the fact about being prepared. I was calling Glenwood and Kemper at Kemper. It was a basketball game, my first ever game I was going to go do color commentary for. And Jeff Blankman went down. He said, all right, I want you to go down to go get the names of the players so we know how to say it right on air. And so I did, but I also didn't. I went down, I was so nervous, he pushed me to do it, and then lo and behold, I got someone's name wrong, and we got kind of flamed by a Glenwood player. So that fact of being prepared is, I think, something that is taken for granted sometimes with broadcasters, especially when you watch it professionally with, Romo and all those guys, and especially you guys with Learfield. Being prepared is one of those things that I think is taken for granted sometimes in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely it is. When somebody's not prepared in a broadcast, and especially as you gain a following and you gain a larger audience, it becomes pretty obvious. You can tell when somebody's done their homework and when they haven't, especially if you work in media, if you're part of the industry and you have an ear for it, and you know what to watch and listen for. There's some people that will have their favorite broadcasters and qualities about them that they like. Some people are big Tony Romo fans. Some people, have an axe to grind with Tony. It's always just kind of what you're looking for. Do you like the guy's delivery? Do you like his knowledge? Do you like that he has stories to tell, that he can try to relate to players and make them more relatable as somebody who's not just a jersey number? So yeah, I think a lot of times it'll go down to the broadcast style, but you will never kick yourself for being overly prepared. You're never going to look back and say, I spent way too much time in my prep for this broadcast. You always want to have chunks of stuff that you're never going to use. You never know. It's like anything in life. It's better to have it not need it than to need it not have it.
Wow, I loved that. That's awesome. That is such a cool quote. I never thought of it that way, but that's so cool.
It's the way I, try to live my life. As simple as something as, it's kind of cold out there. Bring the jacket or not? Well, if I get there and I decide, I probably should have brought the jacket. Well, better to have it not needed. You know what I mean? Especially in Minnesota. Really
that's right. It gets extremely cold. I mean, you were in a part of Minnesota in Duluth that's north. I mean, Twin Cities is north, but Duluth is the north.
Yeah. I mean, up there, it's a different element. When I was in the UP and, I'd tell people I lived in Michigan. I'd tell people back in Iowa I lived in Michigan. They're thinking, how close are you to Detroit? I'm like, not at all. The UP is kind of its own breed. A better description of it is I could drive 650 miles south and get to Toronto, and the winters there are just different. They're just different up there, and quickly learned how to dress for the winter. I don't know, must be something about cold climates that just seems to attract me, I guess. But Yeah, I guess I can't say that this year though. It's kind of been unseasonably warm in a lot of ways, which means it's probably going to snow until June now. That being said, it's I don't know. I don't know if it's the cozy factor, the fact that I'm just built for the Midwest. Some people are, some people aren't, but it's just kind of just seems to be the calling card.
I do want to say this as a preference to those people who didn't see our talk right before we got on here. You have this broadcaster's voice. I mean, when people think about a broadcaster's voice and they hear it in their head, I think a lot of times they're hearing you because this is just you 24/7. So when did this broadcast voice come to be, man?
Well, I always knew this was what I wanted to do before I really knew how my voice was going to develop and sound like as an adult. I knew this was the industry, the market I wanted to get into when I was little, and I was still squeaking every time I talked. As I got older, of course, there's tricks and stuff that you can do to try to make your voice sound better. That you can enunciate better. You can be direct. Whatever it may be. Breathing techniques, what have you, can always help. But at some point, you just you do have to be blessed with some good pipes, and I'm thankful for the ones that I've been blessed with. I mean, do I ever get jealous of people's voices? Actually, I do quite a bit. It's one of the first things I notice about somebody. I meet somebody new and I think, wow, they have a great voice. They would sound great on air. I kind of wish I sounded like that. But maybe it was just their own big critic or whatever. It is the nicest compliment I get when people tell me I've got the voice for the industry, which I'm really blessed. I'm thankful that people think that I do. And there's always ways that you can continue to improve and make it stronger. But and I've never really thought about it, Tyler. When I go on air, I don't mentally flip a switch and say, okay, it's time to get into Vince Scully mode. I just kind of flip the switch and I go on. And I guess subconsciously, is it a whole lot different to me? Not really. Maybe it is for some people, not me personally. I don't know. Some people think that's cool. I'm glad they do, because I don't know, what you see or what you hear is what you get.
Well, I think some people really kind of look at broadcasters and they're like, how do you refrain from saying the certain words you're not supposed to say on air and all that stuff? And that's the same analogy that I use. It's flipping a switch. You just kind of know subconsciously you're not supposed to say this, or you're supposed to say this way. It's just a switch that you kind of flip on when it's when the red light is on.
Yeah, I mean, mentally there is absolutely a switch that gets flipped, that where you are, talking with your friends, as far as talking with your friends while watching a game. For me, that's kind of where that switch is flipped. So with the voice itself, I don't make a point of trying to do it. But as far as what you say and what you want to convey to the audience, absolutely. I think any good broadcaster's got to look at, first of all, recognize what your audience is, and then what you want them to get out of what you're putting out there. Do you want it to be something that's overly informative? Do you want it to be something where there's a lot of storytelling? Do you want to give off that vibe where you're sitting and watching the game with guys at a bar, PG-13 language, what have you? But, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like goes back to everybody's style. What makes you, what makes you unique, and then finding that, continuing to carve out a niche for yourself with it.
And I'm loving that you're just throwing out this advice. I don't even have to ask you. You're just giving it out for free, man. So let's stay on that train a little bit. Talking about just some advice. We've already talked about being over-prepared. We talked about finding your niche, finding your character, finding your voice. What's some other advice that you give out to other broadcasters or going to be broadcasters? What's some of that advice that you give out to people to make them better at the end of the day?
Well, I find myself repeating a lot of the advice that was given to me by a lot of the people who are kind enough to kind of take me under their wing. I didn't doubt it at the time, but I'm just finding out, boy, they really weren't just saying it to be cliche. This is legitimate, where you're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to grind. You're probably going to have to do a lot of things that you don't want to do. And the pay isn't going to be great. That doesn't mean it can't be great in the industry, but, it is what it is that the industry is something where you really got to cut your teeth until you feel like a point where you've made it. So, it may not be everything that you want to be right away. A lot of people who come out of college can come out with unrealistic expectations that, you're going to make a comfortable living right away in a big market. You're going to be doing some stuff with, professional or major college teams. And, a lot of people just have to grind for that. And that's, not for everybody. And some people, and there's nothing wrong with trying to find something that you can have a sustainable lifestyle with out of college, but in this industry, it's awfully rare for that to happen. It's really tough. And, it really does take a lot of perseverance. There's going to be a lot of instances where maybe you have some self-doubt because as talented as someone may be, there's a lot of talented people out there competing for a certain very finite number of jobs. So, and I did, I took some rejections probably a little too personally, when I was trying to get my career going because, finding that first one, especially, it's not a referendum on how talented or not you are, but how much experience do you have? Do you know the right people? And what can you do beyond the broadcast? How many different hats can you wear, especially at smaller markets, that set you apart from other candidates? It's not a referendum on what you can or can't do, but a lot of these markets, they're going to want great recommendations from influential people. Not everybody has that, some do, but it truly is about who you know rather than what you know. What you know does matter, but who you know, certainly, as cliche as it is, matters a lot more. It's something about being flexible and being willing to do things that maybe you don't want to do. Maybe you get a job in a smaller market. You want to call games. That's what you're there for. But you also got to do media relations. You got to do some social media work, whatever it may be. They may ask you to wear multiple hats of things that you're not as excited about. But, that's not atypical. That's normal. I think we see it more and more, especially out of the pandemic. So that stuff may discourage you. And I certainly felt discouraged in a lot of places, after the pandemic when I was in junior hockey, and I felt like I was back in square one. And I was seriously doubting. I was like, are my best days in the broadcast industry behind me? Do I want to work in sports? Is broadcast still a path for me? And there are going to be some times like that where you really have some serious self-doubts, and it's going to test your perseverance. The industry will. So, it's something that may not be for everybody, but everybody will get tested. You will get your perseverance tested. So you got to keep fighting, fight through that and lean on the people that have taken you under their wings and been kind enough to do so. Build that network. You can never have too small of a social network in this industry. Again, it truly is more about who you know rather than what you know, whether right or wrong. It is the truth. So, expand that network, be willing to do things that are unasked of you or that, you weren't training for, you weren't hoping to do, didn't go to school for. All of that benefits you in the long run.
Man, all the things that I've been through and you have been through, I mean, it's verbatim what you just talked about. I mean, there's going to be people who want to get out of college. They want to go to the NFL. They want to go to the NHL. They want to call these big games and these big moments. But to what you just said, it's the fact of you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do sometimes. There's going to be long hours, and this industry isn't for everybody. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of these people who get into these spots stay in their spots for so long, because it's so hard to get jobs and get higher jobs in these markets, because you have people who want to stay in there for so long. But again, I think to your point, number one, it's just starting. It's getting those connections started, building your network, building the people because the people that that you've worked with are going to speak well for you, and you never know who's going to know who.
100%. It's kind of like, when I started out with the Canaries that, I had no idea that the new owners are the same guys who sponsor PJ Flex radio show, but it's all the, part of that connection, being in that ecosystem. I always try to leave a good impression on people. Try to keep, this is one of my personal things, is just trying to keep some of my maybe personal opinions off social media, and just try to, what I try to take pride in, it's not necessarily just to get ahead, is just try to treat people the right way, and I know that it's a world where, a lot of things divide us. There's a lot of controversy pretty much anywhere you look. And, one of the things that I've tried to do I've always tried to do it, but especially here as the last couple of years have gone on, is just try to be more of a listener, not spout off my opinions, because I don't know what other people have gone through, and you never know. It could always come back to bite you if you do. So my personal philosophy is never burn bridges. If you think somebody's the stupidest person in the world, they have not a clue what they're talking about, never tell them that. I mean, just ignore them, let them have their thing. Don't ruin something that brings other people joy. But never burn bridges, because it reflects more on you as a person, and you never know where they're going to be down the road, where you're going to be, or what you're going for down the road. So I mean, treating people with respect, treating people, my personal philosophy is that every person that you come in contact with is a person that God loves, and that's just how I try to live my life, regardless of how they may help me in their career. But it does go back to relating your career. It absolutely does, in a big way, that from a career aspect, you just never want to burn bridges. You just always treat people the right way, do things the right way, and work hard and reward people who invest in you. The people who do right by me, I really, really want to do right by them.
We could go on and on and on all day about some awesome motivational stuff, but I want to talk about some fun stuff, dang it, because we're all business sometimes, but I like to have fun too. So let's get to some fun stuff, man. You, of course, are so entrenched with everything happening with Minnesota Golden Gophers, sports and athletics. Let's talk about the Big Ten, man. I mean, expansion is on the horizon. 4 new teams are coming in. College football's on fire. Everything is happening at the same time. Where do the Golden Gophers... Let's just start football-wise. Where do they stand in this new Big Ten sphere?
I'm really excited about where Minnesota football is headed. PJ Fleck has come to Minnesota and revitalized the program that had been down for a long time. I know there's people that have their own opinions about PJ. He can be a controversial guy in a lot of ways. I love PJ, I really do, and from just interacting with him, talking with him. What you see on TV, the guy who's energetic and animated, that's who he is. He's not putting on the whole rowing the boat is not an act. That's just who he is. And I have great respect for him with what he's done with Masonic Children's Hospitals, and where the whole origin of row the boat comes from. I don't think enough people understand the origin of that saying. I think a lot of people hear that and think, this is a used car salesman giving a slogan. But, he had a child, him and his wife Heather had a child that passed away shortly after childbirth, and when life comes at you, it's going to give you obstacles like that. You got to keep rowing. You got to keep going forward with whatever life may throw at you. And I couldn't imagine going through something like that. I hope I never do, but I know that's inspired him in a lot of ways to continue to help out Masonic Children's Hospitals, the U of M, M Health Fairview, which certainly has an impact on my life. They've treated me ever since my Marfan syndrome diagnosis. They handled my open heart surgery there in 2016. And so that's another reason coming to the U of M just, makes everything that much more special and full circle for me. But getting back to the original line of topic, a lot of people, have their opinions about PJ, but, and this year was a down year. Okay. Going 6-7, I know wasn't what everybody had in mind going into the season, but PJ's won 9 games 3 times over the course of his 7 years at Minnesota. Minnesota had 3 previous 9-win seasons in the last 100 years coming up to that. People are excited about Gopher football. People are excited to come play for him. His players love him. Every once in a while you'll get a story coming out where a recruit, it didn't have a great experience. And I think that's true anywhere. But the majority of these guys, they would go to war for him. They really enjoy what he's done with the program and who he is, and in the way he leads. And he's done a great job coming at the U of M. People may not like him, but he has done a great job since coming to Minnesota. He's brought interest back, and he's making them competitive. So obviously the Big Ten's going to get a lot tougher. You have those 4 West Coast schools coming in, all of them good football programs. They're going to be tough. It's going to be a lot tougher to win the Big Ten. And Minnesota, were they close to winning the Big Ten coming into it? Probably not. That being said, I like where the Gopher football program is positioned, where they're headed. Last week, there were all those rumors that, is PJ going to leave UCLA or for UCLA? He was kind of their top target. Not a chance. I was never worried about that. People texted me. They said, "You worried? Who's going to be coaching your team here next season?" Now, PJ is committed to where he is. He loves Minnesota. I think he's going to retire there. And he's got his best recruiting class in his 8 years now, going on 8 years coming in. He was able to outduel Ryan Day to get the young man out of Esco up in the Duluth area in Coy Parrish, who just got the MVP of the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, Super Bowl. How about the Senior Bowl?
There we go.
And he was able to keep him from going to Ohio State, keep him in town. You look over the past season, he's won, I think, 3, maybe 4 in a row against Nebraska. I think that streak might have started before I got there. He finally got, he was able to get across Iowa. He was finally able to take down Kirk Ferentz. I know that was something that, they were really hoping would come for a while. And Wisconsin got us this season, but back-to-back victories over the Badgers. And, and at one point we had Florida Rosedale and the Axe in the same building for the first time since 1993. That's special. It means a lot to Golden Gopher football fans, especially a lot of them from a couple generations ago when they're seeing the Gophers compete for national championships in the early 60s. So I am excited about the future of Gopher football. I don't think it's going to be doom and gloom by any stretch. I think they're going to continue to be competitive. I'm excited to see, where we stack up against some of these West Coast schools. We get to host USC this year and head to the Rose Bowl here in a couple of months and play UCLA. I mean, that's really cool. And, the while get to protect rivalries with Wisconsin and Iowa. So it's great for the Big Ten. It's great for the conference as a whole. It's only going to continue to elevate us. But, a lot of people are going to look at it and say, well, the mountain's getting a lot harder to climb for Gopher football. And that might be true. I don't think it's the doomsday scenario people want it to be or want to paint it out to be. I think Gopher football is going to continue to be competitive, continue to get to bowl games, and every once in a while, I think we're gonna do something special and really shock the nation and get a win that a lot of people aren't, probably don't think that we're supposed to get.
And I know I asked Jeff Blankman this question, but there's so much change coming to college football this next year. You're talking about all the new teams and new conferences and the 12-team playoff format. How long do you think it's going to take for another big realignment, another big super conference? When do you think that all these things are going to kind of come into line where, we just have an East versus a West?
We really do, and you've got Cal and Stanford playing the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like, any answer I give you is going to be wrong.
That's right.
Because I had no clue that any of this was going to happen before waking up one day in the summer of 2022 and seeing a tweet. It's official, UCLA, USC to the Big Ten. I'm thinking, there's no way this is happening. And then 30 minutes later, every news outlet's confirmed it. And it's just, it is a money-driven industry, for better or for worse. That's a reality of it. And it's a football driven industry. I think men's basketball has a little bit of clout as far as that. And for the right market, maybe, and it's got to be a very niche market, maybe hockey, but it's going to be football driven and to a lesser extent men's basketball. And then everything else is just kind of, sorted out, put where the river takes you. That's just the reality of things. So I think that we are going to see more of an expansion of the playoff from 12 teams before a massive conference realignment. I don't know what more they can do at this point, unless the ACC and the Big 12 decide we're going to take the best of the best. I'm still curious where Washington State, Oregon State end up. I saw today there was talk of expanding the NCAA basketball tournament, and I just don't know that we need to go beyond 68 teams, but who knows? I honestly, if I were to bet, and I have limited actual inside knowledge to this, if I were to bet, I think the next major change we're going to see would be to the NCAA hockey tournament. I think we might see a couple more teams get added as far as the road to the Frozen Four, maybe from 16 to 20. That's not going to be major for everybody, but for us in Minnesota, that's going to be big news. So, the NCAA is a living organism that is moving, changing, moving and grooving all the time. And I think that there's a lot of smart people that are involved in it. Some people may not like the ethics, maybe, I don't know, but I think there's smart people that are at the heads of everything. I love our commissioner in the Big Ten, Kevin Warren, and Tony Petitti. Kevin Warren did do a great job when he was there. Tony Petitti, now just wrapping up his first year, he's been doing a great job, and really enjoy where he's taken the conference. So I think they're going to continue to reach new heights in and of itself, and I think long term the product is in good hands.
I'm glad you brought up hockey, because you are a hockey freak. I don't even know anyone else who loves hockey more than you. And you, of course, are in Hockey USA. You got the Golden Gophers. You've got Minnesota State up there. You're not too far away from a lot of other hockey powers. Where did this love of hockey come from, man?
I always knew that was something that was just, I know it's a regional thing, but growing up, I'd play the video games, I'd watch the games on TV, and, it was never a regional thing to me. It was something that I just thought it was a cool sport. It was fun to watch. Hockey is something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, but they enjoy watching. They'll go and see a full line brawl, what have you, and that can be fun. But the game in and of itself really is a beautiful game, and especially when you're playing it well. And the Gophers, thankfully, have had some really good teams over the years. Bob has done a great job now in his sixth season with the Gopher program. Last year, came up just a little bit short. That was heartbreaking, but sets up for a great comeback, because St. Paul is hosting the Frozen Four here next a little over a month from now. So, maybe it's a good redemption story. But, look all around the state, the Wild, I know they're kind of having a down year. They've got some really exciting pieces, some really good young guns. Brock Faber, in my unbiased opinion, I think is going to be a Calder candidate, maybe even should be the favorite. I don't know how he was an all-star. Kaprizov is the real deal. Fleury, growing up watching him backstop Pittsburgh to multiple Stanley Cups. I've always been a Fleury fan, and I'm glad to see him kind of get a career resurgence ever since being claimed by Vegas in that expansion draft. He still continues to play well at a high level as he gets older. So, being in the state of hockey truly is special. Hockey Day Minnesota just wrapped up. That's so cool. Just seeing what that's like. Every state, I think, has their own tradition, their own, culture, cultural aspect of things that, kind of a festival of some sort that puts them on the map, what have you. At Minnesota, of course, they celebrate the great game of hockey, and they go to different arenas around the state, different locations, and it's really cool getting to see, and you never know. Sometimes I go out there and do, we've got the high school state tournaments coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I'll go out there, do a high school game. You never know which of those guys. Minnesota produces so many NHLers. Which of them is going to be that guy that in a few years, is lighting it up, competing for a Stanley Cup? So to me, that's really cool. You can go out as a fan, as on the mic, be working the game, go out to a high school game any given night, and you're watching the next superstar. You truly are where you're located. And like you mentioned, a few other of the hockey schools around there, St. Thomas and Minnesota State, those two are jockeying back and forth for the CCHA, which might be the most fun conference in college hockey this year. Just as competitive as that is, you've got four teams who can realistically win that going down to the last 2 weekends or so of the regular season. So those two certainly are playing well. Duluth is always good. I think they've, taken a small step back here for the last couple of years, but they're always tough. They're always going to bring it. Bemidji is good. They're always going to be tough. St. Cloud is always going to play it tough. So, we've got plenty of teams in our great state that, are always going to bring it on a national stage. And, I'm hoping that we bring back what they did a couple of years ago. They discontinued it before I moved up here. With the North Star Cup, Boston still has the Bean Pot, and it's always fun. Just wrapped up the other night. I'd love to see us bring back a tournament with, of some format with the 6 schools in the state all competing for a trophy around mid-December. I think that'd be so much fun. But yeah, there's definitely an appetite for it. And it's really cool, especially when the teams are playing well. I think honestly that goes beyond hockey, Tyler. I think that one of the coolest things, not just working in sports media, but living in a metro area. And I'm sure you can feel this being in Kansas City. When the teams play well, the city really does have a different vibe to it. They really do. The Timberwolves are first place team right now. That hasn't happened in a long time. And the city is certainly feeling it. I was at the Twins game last October when they finally snapped that postseason drought. And boy, that was crazy. The entire stadium collectively seemed to empty at one time, cross the street, go over to Cowboy Jacks. If and the party just kept going. So when the city, when the teams are playing well, the city really does feel it. And that's really, really cool.
Yeah, you got a point. I mean, I'm down here in Kansas City. I live in Olathe, so I live, in the southwest corner of Kansas City, far away from anything that has to do with Chiefs. They're over in Independence. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I was hearing fireworks everywhere. So that's absolutely true. When the teams and the city do good, the city is feeling good. I mean, there's no truer sentence than that right there.
It's really cool. And I am in the city. I'm less than a mile from the campus of the U of M. I look out my window and can see the lights in US Bank Stadium. So I don't know. It just kind of feels like I'm in the heartbeat of something that, you can take a 10-minute Uber ride and, be at Target Field, Target Center, the X. That's probably a little farther in St. Paul, but either or, being right there, being in the thick of things, it really does feel like there's an extra heartbeat to it. Especially when the teams play well. When the Gophers made their run to the national championship in hockey last year, that was so special. The Vikings have had some special moments over the last few years. Obviously, it was a little bit of a down year this season. But last year, winning all those close games, winning the division, that was special. You can really feel it. The city comes alive. And, some people will say some people say it's not a great sports town. I could not disagree more. It's a long-starved sports town, or towns, Twin Cities, that have been looking for a champion for a long time. I don't know when that's coming, but I tell you what, when the city does get that champion, Minneapolis is going to be the place to be. The party is only going to get started once that final whistle blows.
I do want to ask you, because I've been on the University of Minnesota's campus once before, and it is a very, very large campus with a very, very large bridge. What are some ways that you get around campus? Because for people who don't know, it is a massive campus.
Yeah, absolutely. It's walkable from where I'm at, in just kind of that area. Dinkytown, I love Dinkytown. It's got its own little vibe going on. So a lot of it is walkable for me, but I love the metro system that they've got in there. I think the public transit in Minneapolis is really, really good, and they're always options to do that. There's plenty of things like Uber, Lyft, whatever it may be. I've got access to a vehicle. I've got a car, but, I don't always take it down there because, well, for one thing, parking's competitive. But for another, you don't need to. It's a place where you can just walk out, have no plans, no clue where you're going to end up by night's end, but just know that you're going to have a great night. You're going to come across somebody, get a group together. There's going to be stuff to do up there. That's the thing is, I'm very much a FOMO guy. I feel when I'm not in the cities, I feel like I'm always missing out on something fun, So, it's one of those things that there's always something to do. It's very accessible, very easy to get around. I feel safe when I'm on there, and hopefully everybody does. It's a really nice campus. I really enjoy being there, and especially considering, they've got the athletics village, that everything is kind of in one area. You've got all the stadiums kind of in one section of campus, and, that helps me out, certainly kind of, makes things easier for me. But, it just really is a great campus, something that, is really fun to go spend a weekend up there if you get the chance.
I haven't been up there in quite a while. The next time that I am on campus, you and I need to go to Dinkytown, because I have not had the pleasure of experiencing Dinkytown.
We are going to 100% go to my favorite spots in Dinkytown.
Yeah.
I've got a list of places. I tell you, maybe come up here on a game day weekend. We'll show you a good time.
Man, that would be fantastic. Just asking you one more thing about hockey. We are a few months away from the Frozen Four. Last year's was so awesome, especially talking about University of Minnesota's run. Who do you foresee this year getting to the Frozen Four?
It's going to be really dependent on how the brackets shape out, because there's, I think, 8-9 teams that have a legitimate level of talent to get to St. Paul and get to the Frozen Four. It's going to shape out over the next few weeks or so, the last couple of weeks of the regular season and the conference tournaments, and how those brackets pair out. There's going to be some good teams that are left home, not undeservedly so, because unless there's at least two major upsets in a regional, a deserving team is going to get to the Frozen Four. So specifically, I think both the Boston schools are going to have a chance. It'd be interesting to see where Boston U and Boston College end up getting placed. North Dakota, I think, is certainly capable of it. And that makes you wonder because, the Gophers are a team where we're ranked 8th in the country, but playing our best hockey right now. We're starting to figure out we're not the same team we were last year. Doesn't mean we're not as good. It just means we're not the same team we were last season when you had Logan Cooley, you had Matthew Nyes, you had those studs on defense between Faber and Johnson and company. You don't necessarily have guys who are ready to roll right into the NHL playing on a given line any given night. That being said, there's still a ton of talent on this team. I think they've been playing their best hockey over the last couple of weeks. They looked absolutely dominant, did everything they needed to against Penn State this weekend. Justin Close, he's been playing his best, I think, stretch in net here for the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, the Gophers, I think people will look at them and say, well, the record's, it's good. It's not sterling like it was a season ago at this time. They're 8th overall. They're 3rd in the Big Ten. There's two teams that are going to finish ahead of them in the standings, yet total confidence this team can absolutely make a run. That it wouldn't be a shock to anybody to see them in the Frozen Four. Michigan State, Wisconsin are ahead of us right now in the standings. Two teams that have been down for a long time. They're having really good seasons this year, but winning in the postseason, any sport, that's a different animal. That's a different challenge. So, can they carry the regular season success over into the postseason? That's going to be big. So those are a few of the teams that, can they win a couple in the regionals, get to St. Paul? Absolutely. I don't want to take anything away from what they've done or how talented they are. But, I think we're going to see a lot of the Blue Bloods not only fight to have their spot in the Frozen Four, maybe be favorites to get there, but how do you want to split them up when it comes time to go to regionals? Because North Dakota, Minnesota, Michigan State, Wisconsin, what are the odds that those 4 teams are in 4 separate regionals and they can all make it? It's not good. There are going to be some good teams that are left home once we get the Frozen Four, the last 4 standing out there at the XL.
Man, this has been such a great conversation. I have just let you talk so much, and it's been so awesome to catch up with you, man. This has been so great. Before I ask you my last question, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I guess it's not Twitter anymore. X, Instagram, things like that. My @ name is T Money Hoops. No one really calls me T Money anymore. That was still a high school, college thing, but I kept it. So T, the letter T, Money, HOOPS, is my @ name. Try to stay fairly active on there. But I love being able to keep in touch with people that I haven't necessarily seen for a long time, and social media is a great way to do that.
And people, I gotta preface this too. Your last name is legitimately Hoops. I mean, you can't get more perfect than the last name Hoops, man.
Everybody asked me, is that fake? Is that a stage name? I'm like, no, it's Dutch German. It was just what I was born with. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. And I would get that all the time hosting a talk show at ESPN Radio. People would say that has to be fake. That just, it can't be real. But if that's not a sign of what the industry is I need to get into, I don't know what is.
Man, I tell you what, you are such a wealth of knowledge. You're so kind. You're so generous. You give back so much. And it's been such a great conversation. I really hope that people get out of this what they want to get out of this, because you have been doing the dang thing for so long, and you're just kicking ass, man.
Hey, I appreciate you, my brother. You've been a blessing to me ever since getting to get to know you when we came across each other on campus. And, you're doing some great stuff now, seeing where you're at. I enjoyed following your career when you were in Carroll, and excited to see what you continue to do down in Kansas City.
Hey, thank you, man. And one last question I want to ask you, because this whole show is about going beyond in life, beyond in your career. What's one reason why you go beyond in your life?
So I always grew up knowing that I wanted to do this. And maybe selfishly, the reason was, I'm not going to make it as an athlete. This is the next best thing. You're getting paid to have the best seat in the house and to be on air, to bring something to life. But as I got older and I start thinking about, some of the moments I remember growing up, some of the iconic calls and the ways guys have narrated, some of the special moments that I grew up watching as a sports fan. And I kept thinking, I get to do that now for some people. And, I've been blessed to be able to do that, to be able to punctuate, to emphasize and to narrate, make a moment special for somebody. Walk-off home run is always going to be special for a kid. And if I get to provide that soundtrack to add the call that punctuates that and continue to make that even more special for them, how great is that? That being that, having the ability to do that is just so rewarding. And that's something that, I owe it to the athletes that I covered, the teams, the coaches, not only to represent them as best I can, but, to make a moment special for them, to capture a moment, just like so many of the guys who inspired me to get into the business did for me.
Man, it has been such a pleasure. And I promise you, I'm going to make it up to Minneapolis. I'm going to make it to Dinkytown, and we're going to share a drink together.
We're going to do it, man. I know the best spots. We'll have a good night.
Man, I love it. T-Money, Tanner Hoops, thank you, my friend, for being on here.
Thanks, Tyler. Be well.
Man, that conversation gives me goosebumps every single time. I've gone back and listened to it a few times already. Man, what a spectacular individual that T-Money is. And make sure you show him some love. Make sure you go to the description of this episode and you follow him wherever he is, because he's active on Facebook, he's active on Instagram, on Twitter. Just such a great guy. He's so willing to give back to those people who gave him the opportunities to begin with. And again, he's a professional's professional. Man, just such a great human being. I do want to preface this wall behind me and the lighting. It's all going to get better. I do promise you that. I go back and I cringe a little bit that I don't have proper lighting and all this kind of stuff, but that is going to change here soon, hopefully. We are going to invest in some good lighting here at Beyond the Broadcast because I personally know better, so don't worry. Better quality stuff is coming down the pipeline, and hopefully bigger guests. We have some really awesome guests in the making, and we're only going to get bigger guests if you support us here on the podcast. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, on the podcast platform you listen to this right now, or even on YouTube, just make sure you click that follow button, you like it, you give it some ratings, just make sure you do all that, because again, that supports me, that supports what I'm doing here with this show, and that just supports, getting some cooler guests in the near future. Man, I cannot wait. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to the show, just being you, just being awesome. That's all I'm really grateful for. And I cannot wait for next Friday. We have such an awesome guest. Had to swap around a few guests, so that's why I'm wearing a completely different t-shirt. But next Friday, we've got another dear media friend of mine, Mr. Clayton Van Horn. Such a great, kind soul, and such an energetic one at that. He's an assistant wrestling coach right now. He's with the Sioux Falls Canaries as well, which is a really cool bonus. And he's just such a passionate soul. And I cannot wait for our conversation because we talk about his video project Unsanctioned, the journey throughout girls wrestling in Iowa and how it became sanctioned. Man, it's so cool. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about his journeys within the world of sports media and content creation. I cannot wait for y'all to meet Clayton and to hear his story. That's next Friday. But for right now, I got to go. I got to head on out of here. Got to go hit the hay and live another day. So I'll tell you what, thank you so much for joining me here on episode 3 of Beyond the Broadcast. Make sure you follow us everywhere. All the links, all the handles are in the description of this episode. My name's Tyler Bruner, and until next time, make sure you do great, you do amazing things, but always remember to go beyond. All right, hey, we'll see you next Friday.